5 passengers. One mission: to witness the Titanic's resting place over 12,000 feet beneath the Atlantic. They boarded a submarine named Titan, sleek, compact, and experimental. But within hours, the vessel vanished. The world watched. I hoped so. Then I mourned. It seemed like a tragic accident, but as details emerged, a darker truth surfaced. This wasn't a sudden disaster. It was a series of ignored warnings, suppressed concerns, and red flags waving long before launch. This is the story of the Titan submarine disaster and the signs that were missed. The mission and the machine oceangate expeditions.
It had never done any emergency docking procedures. In fact, we were there in May. They were bringing passengers a few months later for the first time to the North Atlantic.
Said that it would offer an elite expedition with no prior experience. With $250,000, the chosen customers would have the chance to visit the grave of Titanic, a ship that symbolized human ambition and devastating boundaries. Their ship of choice was the Titan, a carbon fiber and titanium prototype, and unusual materials in deep-sea travel. Titan was not classified, and there were no regular examinations and third-party safety measures, as it was with the traditional types of submersibles. OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush thought of regulation as an impediment. He stated in an infamous interview that, so long as one is not breaking things, one cannot be an innovator. The sub incorporated experimental materials, less successful track record, and even was controlled by a video game controller. An escape hatch was not inside. Nevertheless, no emergency beacon system. No time-based tracking, which could be tracked by the authorities. It was not only dangerous, but it was radical. And it had philosophy, rule breakdown, history. But the deep water there forgets not to make mistakes. Engineering shortcuts and safety gaps.
We were in the sub for hours with Stockton, and the dive was interesting in that nothing really worked right.
Behind the smooth marketing of Titan were serious structural issues. The director of marine operations, David Lockridge, looked into the internal safety papers and sounded alarm bells. Not only was he concerned, but he was shocked. He pointed out that Titan did not have some ground pressure testing. A carbon fiber hull on which it was based had never undergone successful testing in repeatedly diving to Titanic depths. Carbon fiber is able to deform quietly, unlike titanium, which can be predictable to the deep-sea pressure. After being attacked, there is no signal it has been damaged, just an explosion. Lockridge insisted on acquiring impeccable test data, namely of the form non-destructive hull testing via acoustic emissions, but OceanGate declined. He lost his job. It was followed by a lawsuit. Legal response of OceanGate? Much less that Lockridge had a standing to require such testing. The business preferred to rush instead of looking deeper, aim instead of certainty. Other scholars got involved in cautioning OceanGate along with Lockridge. Letters were written by deep-sea veterans. There was concern of disastrous collapse among engineers. OceanGate took them as roadblocks. Anybody who criticized was called a naysayer. There was no room in a test dive world to ignore a warning. A single warning overlooked might be deadly. Ignoring many, inevitable. The culture of silence and charisma.
The sub didn't really do anything it was asked to do. You know, we took it underwater, and then there was just a cascade of problems with the sub.
Stockton Rush was not just a CEO. He was a brand name. An idealist able to persuade tech elites, entrepreneurs, and those with money to spare, and a sense of adventure to place their lives in his hands. His capability to make people believe in him proved to be dangerous, since it was a way of limiting objections. At OceanGate, the culture was developed in which risk was not only tolerated, but it was also rewarded. It is the employees who queried things that ended up on the periphery. The rest remained quiet. They were afraid to disagree with the charmer who offered to make all the world remarkable. Customers fall into the fantasy. They were not merely forking out money to go diving, they were investing in a movement, an adventure in a lifetime. Others compared it to traveling to space. There was little doubt in safety procedures. Rush always tended to minimize fears in interviews. At a certain juncture, he told me, you must make some gamble. Otherwise, you are nothing but a tourist. Adventure is an adventure with only accountability being a toss in the air. And at the core of all the charisma of Rush was the absence of contingency, no backups or redundancies, and no oversight, in fact. The Titan was not designed to crash in a secure way. It was constructed in a bid to bag headlines. Did you know the design of Titan was neither certified, nor did it follow the ordinary manufacturing standards? The pressure hull is the central part of the capacity of any submersible, and it was constructed with layers of carbon fiber, which OceanGate acknowledged to have not been utilized underwater until now in deep-sea conditions. Its small viewport was certified only to a depth of 1,300 meters, it is reported. Titanic is at an altitude of almost 4,000 meters. Moreover, consumer off-the-shelf equipment was used as the ballast system of the sub, and people in the submarine also talked to the surface through a simple text message through Starlink, albeit a service never intended to be used in water. Talking about these design options, OceanGate stressed that the company went out of the box in its innovations. However, under any environment where pressure is more than 6,000 pounds per square inch, there is no improvisation. There is no margin of error. Shortcuts are not condoned in the ocean. The day of the dive.
Then there was an issue with the software. The system crashed at one point.
Hello? Can you copy?
The first day of June 18, 2023 started on a happy note. Titan was shipped out of its mothership, Polar Prince. On board, CEO Stockton Rush, British billionaire Hamish Harding, French diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet, Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood, and his son Suleiman. At 8 a.m., the Titan had started its descent. The mood was gay. Snapshots were made, date, then silence. Communication stopped at 9:45 a.m. It had not been long since the dive had started. At sea in the Polar Prince, panic was on the increase. No pings, no responses. These were not made so that the Titan could emerge on its own. It did not have any beacon to trace. A huge international rescue mission was initiated, with the rest of the world watching the events unfold. The ocean was covered by sonars. Above there were planes that were scanned. Scientists were saying that we do not have much time left. Hours after the launch, the U.S. Navy detected something called an anomaly, which is an acoustic type of signature that matched that of an implosion, which was unknown to many. That information is classified, though. 4 days later, it was proved to be true after some wreckage was found near the Titanic. Debris fields. It was all over in a flash and a bloody collapse. Due to the collapse of structures, bodies were not found, only fragments. The bigger picture.
Former U.S. Marine Robert Mester also turned down a seat on the Titan, citing the untested nature of its carbon fiber hull. And Las Vegas business mogul Jay Bloom, despite being offered a steep discount on the standard $250,000 admission fee, also declined.
The Titan was not all about a sub. It was more of a mental thing, the growing attitude concerning contemporary innovation. Speed is valued in the world of tech. In startups, failure is romanticized. One of the motto is move fast and break things. The deep sea pressure is, however, indifferent to disruption. A force of gravity is not upgrading. The tragedy taught us that innovation should not only have engines, but also brakes. Humility is a necessity to that ambition, and that not listening to experts is not brave, but is blind. The case of OceanGate is made into a lesson taught in engineering classes on ethics. The options it made broken down. Quotes of its founder that initially were so inspiring are now chilling. They were the red flags. The threats are loud. The tragedy was preventable. Yet what is not seen becomes a reality. The Titan promised to take us to the Titanic, but it took us somewhere else, into the heart of what happens when ambition overshadows caution. 5 lives were lost, not just to pressure, but to a pressure system of belief that rules are optional, that critics are enemies, and that confidence is all you need to survive the unknown. The ocean is vast, mysterious, unforgiving, and it demands respect. If this breakdown gave you new insight into the Titan tragedy, hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth storytelling, and drop a comment. What do you think should change in the world of private exploration? Until next time, stay smart, stay grounded, and remember, When red flags are ignored, the cost isn't just financial, it's human.